Every time the Fed prints more money, Bitcoin silently gets stronger. But how exactly does the money supply affect Bitcoin's price? And what are the charts telling us right now using RSI moving averages? In this episode, we're going to break down the hidden signals behind the charts so you can see where the smart money is investing before the headlines hit and where Bitcoin's price is heading. Let's jump into it. Before we dive into some of the chart indicators, let's start with the basics. M2 money supply, remember, is a measure of the total amount of liquid money in the economy: cash, checking, savings, and short term deposits. When this number goes up, it's a sign that more dollars are chasing the same number of goods, which often leads to inflation. Now, here's the kicker: Bitcoin was literally designed to be an antidote to this. While the dollar inflates, Bitcoin's supply remains fixed at 21 million coins. TradingView allows you to plot the M2 money supply against time, and this is what the chart yields. So you can see that in 1998, the M2 money supply was about 4 trillion. In 2020, it was about 15 trillion, so a difference of 11 trillion in that 22 years. But what happened in 2020? COVID-19, and the Fed started printing money to cover the stimulus checks and pump a lot of money into the system to help interest rates. So therefore, the money supply expanded rapidly. So within 2 years, from 2020 to 2022, there was an increase from 15 trillion to about 21 trillion, 22 trillion. So a 7 trillion increase in 2 years when you've had an increase of 11 trillion in 22 years. So it is a huge amount of money they were adding into the system, and therefore that was reducing everyone's purchasing power, eroding everyone's purchasing power, and therefore causing a lot of inflation. And what's even more interesting is that this started to cool off between 2022 and 2024, but you can see that there's starting to be an increase of that M2 money supply, suggesting that the money printers have been turned back on and that the Fed is putting more money into the system. But if we zoom out, you can see the true exponential effect of the way that the Fed has printed money. So just to show you over time, I mean, that is an exponential chart if I've ever seen one. And let me just make the scale easier for everyone to read. So it really shows that while we're all working hard, trying to provide for our families and build better lives for all of ourselves and build wealth, the people close to the money printer or operating the money printers can just turn them on, print the money, and dilute all of our savings, eroding our purchasing power once again, and really making themselves richer. It's a broken system. But there is hope, guys, and I think you know what I'm going to say, and it is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is typically correlated very well to the M2 supply. When the M2 contracts, as it started to in 2022, you can see that the Bitcoin price goes down. And remember when we said that the M2 price suddenly exploded from 2020 due to the Fed printing money in COVID? You can see the rapid increase in Bitcoin's price from around sort of 7K in US dollars to 63K. So very good correlation. And once again, TradingView allows you to overlay these charts, and let's see the effect of that. I've just jumped to the daily chart as it's easier to use the indicator tool on TradingView, and there is a nice handy global M2 money supply offset indicator that you can upload and add onto your chart for yourself, and it's called the Finfluential Global M2 Money Supply with days offset, and I've set the offset to 70, so anywhere between 68 to I believe 80 days gives a decent correlation to show the link between Bitcoin and the M2 money supply. So if we turn that on, you can see as the money supply, which is in the yellow line, increases, the Bitcoin price increases. When it cools off, the Bitcoin price cools off. When there's a rapid expansion of the money supply, the Bitcoin price explodes upwards, and so on. And what's even more interesting is we've got a lot of headroom to go. So the Bitcoin price today, as of the 26th of July 2025, is $118,000. And by this chart, we've got a lot more room, a lot more money printing. It has happened, and therefore the Bitcoin price is very likely to follow. This is not financial advice, but the chart indicators and all the global macro correlation from recent history, although recent history isn't an indicator of future results, we can use these patterns to at least predict what will happen. Now, one thing that I'd really like you guys to take away is that understanding M2 isn't just for economists or analysts working for Barclays, it's for investors, it's for the everyday man as well, because macro liquidity trends often front run what happens in the markets and on the charts. Another great indicator is the Relative Strength Index, or RSI, and TradingView again allows you to add this onto your chart for analysis, which I've done in another tab. And I've flipped it back to the weekly chart for ease of use and for visual representation purposes. But remember guys, that the RSI tells us whether that Bitcoin is overbought or oversold. It ranges from 0 to 100. Anything above 70, and you can see this purple band at the top of this purple line is 70, set to 70, is an overbought or potential pullback scenario. Anything below 30, which is this line here, is an oversold and potential bounce scenario. Now, on the weekly RSI, we've seen that major bottoms, such as the ones that occurred in 2020, if you remember from our previous price chart, occur when the RSI is below or touching that 30, and when there was all-time highs. For example, the peak that occurred in October 2021, you can see the RSI touched 69, 70, and similarly when we hit other all-time highs, the RSI exceeded 70, 85 at one point in time when we hit $72,000. When we hit the magic $100,000, it was again over 70 at about 80, and therefore indicating a potential pullback, which is what happened. And we are currently on the upward trajectory. The RSI is at about 70 again, which indicates a potential pullback could be on the horizon. But again, that doesn't have to indicate a crash. It could be simply a small pullback and then we're off again. You have to remember though that RSI, just like any other indicator, isn't perfect, but it does add valuable context into the price action, and coupled with different indicators such as the M2 money supply or the moving average, then it can be a really powerful tool to help you predict where the Bitcoin price is going and really build your conviction. Now, moving average is one thing we're going to look into as well. And once again, TradingView gives you all the tools to be able to do this. So I've plotted the 50, 100 and 200 day moving averages on the daily chart. So the 50 is the yellow line, the red line or the slightly pinkish or purple line is the 100 day moving average, and the blue is the 200 day moving average. When the Bitcoin price is above all of these lines, that typically signals very bullish behavior. So scrolling out, you can see that Bitcoin price, when it was above all these three lines, went into that expansion and explosion phase. It did so there, it did so there, it's done so there, and it's done so there. It's also going through that phase at the moment, so very bullish behavior, and that aligns with a lot of what we're seeing in the price action. When it's below, it's obviously the inverse, so a bearish signal. So you can see that it's happened here, it happened slightly here, and potentially signals good buying opportunities as these prices are typically low. But the often key indicator is when these three lines cross, or when two of them cross. So a golden cross is when the 50-day moving average crosses the 200 day. The 50 is the yellow and the 200 is the blue. So when this happened, which was here, that signals a very bullish price point, which did correlate with a 111,000 peak. Similarly, in November 2024, around the presidential election time, I think everyone knows what happened there. The yellow line crossed the blue line, or the 50-day moving average crossed the 200-day moving average, resulted in a huge increase of the Bitcoin price up to that magic 100k. So putting this all together to round off the video, guys, the M2 supply is currently increasing. The correlation of the M2 supply to the Bitcoin price remains strong for a 70-day offset. The RSI is currently reaching significant overbought levels, indicating a potential pullback but not a crash. And the moving averages also back up that macro environment, show that the price is above the 50-day, 100-day and 200-day moving averages. All these signals combined lead to a very bullish market outlook and a very positive uptrend in Bitcoin's price. No single metric tells the story, but combined, these signals can help you time the market, not emotionally, but strategically and intelligently. We all need that cheat code, and Bitcoin is that lifeline. Whether you're stacking sats every week or waiting for the next big entry, understanding these signals put you ahead of 95% of retail investors. If you found this valuable, please hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps me grow as a channel. Subscribe for weekly insights into Bitcoin macro and on-chain metrics without the noise. Drop a comment. What's your RSI threshold for buying Bitcoin? What indicators do you use? And do you even believe in any of these indicators? Do you think it's just squiggly lines on a chart? This has been the Bitcoin Briefing. Thanks for watching and see you next time.